Okay, so let's jump into the crux of direct-to-fan, direct-to-consumer. I am going to say direct-to-fan. I can't help it. It's just going to come out of my mouth. Russell, tell me what you think is the ultimate goal for an artist in building this direct-to-consumer relationship.
What's the ultimate goal? I mean, it's very simple to have a direct commercial relationship with your fan. Previously, before D2C really happened, sorry, D2F, whatever you want to call it, before D2C, I can say D2C, I was head of D2C at Universal Music, so I thought, there's always been a middleman in between the fan and the artist. And the internet, of course, changed everything, and it allowed the bands to have a direct relationship. One of the biggest challenges is who owns the rights to manage that relationship, and that's something we can cover later on. But the real ultimate goal is so that the artists can build a direct commercial relationship with their fan, build up their direct relationship with the super fan, really, the guys who are much more likely to spend £2,000 on a gold-plated box set. I mean, that's in very simple terms, it's commercial.
Okay. What about that warm, fuzzy, deep, nurtured relationship with the fan base?
I forgot about that bit, yeah. And because, no, there is that warm, fuzzy bit does count too. I mean, we've all been music fans in the past, and most of us still are now, with exceptions. But if you just think about the connectedness, what the fans wanted. So many years ago, I ran the Robbie Williams online fan club and Robbie Williams online store. And
Not heard of him.
Never heard of him. No, he was quite big in the 80s. Oh no, sorry. But and what we did there was we sold a fan club, and it allowed people early access to the tickets, and that was the warm fuzzy thing. Okay. They paid 25 quid, which seemed like quite a lot of money. They got a free T-shirt, and they got access to the gigs before anybody else.
Cool.
And that was the first really big one I worked on. I mean, it went crazy. It was over 120,000 people bought that subscription.
So I think, yeah, it's the way to get to the bottom line is through the warm fuzzies.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, cool. Dan, if I could ask you, how do you see artists connecting with fans in 2018?
Through a struggle of algorithms and horrible social networks.
That's your experience?
Yeah, it's just memes now. We just communicate purely via memes, because that's the only thing that gets a response.
Right.
And then gets enough of a response for anyone to actually see it.
Okay.
It's a struggle. It's a really hard thing, especially when you haven't got digital marketing behind you or PR driving some additional attention your way. Like the act of 20,000 people like you on Facebook, only 3 of them are going to see what you say, though, is infuriating.
Yeah.
So we're at the flip end of the good times when we all decided to, everyone, don't go to Bebo, let's go to Facebook. And now Facebook are like, we got you all to come here.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean you can't game the system. You just have to be, as an artist, far more active and aggressive. Not in a mean way, but if you're trying to sell merch, you need to post about your merch. You can't just do the one post, hey, this is available. You need to be doing it weekly, or more.
Sorry, I just want to butt in one thing I forgot to mention about the commercial relationship. The key thing is, I know people will laugh at me, but it's email. Getting the customer's email address so you can contact them. The best response we tried every medium under the sun, and email consistently outperforms everything else. With one exception, Facebook posts.
Paid posts, though.
With one exception.
It's kind of a big exception.
Well, I'd say one exception. I mean, it depends on the superfan. So when, I sound like I'm clanging, but when I was running the One Direction shop, if Harry put a personal Facebook post up saying, I've got a new range of T-shirts, and it crashed the servers. And that wasn't a paid, that was just a personal thing. But then he had a massive fan base. Yeah. But if you get the email addresses, you can actually talk to people. I know we keep being told that email is dead, and it's not, but it's just bollocks. Email is still the most important communication route, I think.
Yeah. Leanne, what tools are you using to leverage fan base in your line of work?
Well, I think it's interesting what you were saying about email, because I feel in what we do at AEI, yeah, we're contacting our fans via email a lot, and obviously, you know, putting merch on sale, all that kind of stuff. But what we've moved into more is Facebook chatbots, WhatsApp chatbots, which is more just connecting literally to your phone right at that time. So you can choose to open the message or not, but we kind of almost know you're going to see it because everyone's on those platforms anyway. So that's kind of what we're moving towards, and also trying to make that. It's hard to make a bot personalized, so I think that's the kind of the challenge that we're trying to make, because we have such a big subscriber base on those platforms. But I think email, people are quite used to being communicated in kind of like a, you know, as a whole, you're not kind of used to it being personalized, whereas Facebook is a very personalized thing, because people are choosing to be your friend or choosing to like your page. So those are the tools that we're using, and we're trying to navigate how to make that more personalized to the individual at the moment.
I love it when email thinks it's trying to be personalised and it says, "Hi, undefined."
Yeah,
Well
name.
done. Well done.
Yeah, not so good. Chloe, what do you think about mailing lists? Have you got an opinion?
Yeah, email is still so huge, especially the artists that do come on to PledgeMusic as a platform, who aren't backed by a label, who are independent and kind of selling direct to their fans. What we consider the most important factor in deciding if their campaign is going to be successful or not is really email, because again, socials can have, you know, paid likes on the page. So it's not always indicative of exactly where an artist is in their career, but they also can't really reach those fans unless they can spend behind these ads. So email is still hugely, hugely important, especially if you're doing something like a ticket pre-sale where you can actually segment your fans and find where. In the States, where in Europe, that they should be targeting these specific concerts.
Yeah. So a little bit of a sneaky question. Can you give us an example of a campaign that went wrong?
I mean, I think nothing went disastrously wrong, luckily, in my tenure. But the campaigns that don't do as well as an artist might set out thinking that they will do are usually falling victim to not engaging with the fans throughout the process. So to your point where you need to be posting about that merch every week to keep people engaged, you really do kind of have to have this this forward-thinking long lead for the pre-sales. So you need to be engaged constantly with behind-the-scenes kind of content that might direct fans to that platform and still want to engage with the product, and posting about specific offers that you might have. So without that, if you kind of set it and forget it, those campaigns kind of, there's interest for like a week and then it just flops.
And do you think that it's a one-size-fits-all for that kind of behind-the-scenes content, or are you getting into segmenting mailing lists and sending different stuff to different tiers?
Yeah, no, I think it definitely depends on possibly the genre, but also just who the artist is as a person. So I've seen really effective campaigns where, the artist doesn't feel comfortable speaking directly to fans in a video, or even having like a look into their private life. They don't really want to share that with their fans, so they post just content about like, this is the gear I use, or this is some information behind how we wrote this song. And that content can be super effective for older fan bases, or for maybe more classical or jazz genres. And then the young kind of indie kid bands have a lot of success just posting silly stuff from their iPhones, because the kids want that stuff.
Yeah, so it's sort of a split by genre, demographic.
Yeah.
Leanne, do you find that do you have to deal with kind of younger fans for some of your brands that you need to find ways of reaching?
Yeah, mostly because a lot of our brands are built on YouTube. It's predominantly very, very young kids, people who even, a lot of our brands, some of them, when we look at, in terms of when we're trying to drive people from YouTube onto streaming platforms, that a lot of these kids are not even old enough to be paying for their own premium account and stuff like that. So our marketing tools and the stuff how we get our tracks out is very much, we give a lot away for free, and then when we do put stuff on sale, it's a heightened value product, so people engage with it a little bit more and they make a bit more of an effort, because if they're not going to pay £10 a month for a Spotify subscription, we can't then be like, we'll pay £15 for a t-shirt. They need to see real value in it to part with any money, because all the content is available for free anyway.
Yeah. So this is cool. Can you give us an example of how you achieve the heightened value?
Oh, okay, an example.
Is it like scarcity? some exclusives?
Well, actually, what we did, so for UKF is one of our main brands. So UKF, they do, if for people that don't know, it's a big YouTube channel, and they have UKF drum and bass, UKF dubstep, and just UKF. And it's not a record label, but they do promote music from a lot of other labels, including the ones that we have in-house at AEI, but they do sell a lot of merch. So what we've kind of done, we have a kind of just a baseline merch line, you can get it from any of our shows that we do, but what we rolled out for Black Friday this year, we rolled out a very premium line of merch, and it was made by another brand that we work with called Inspected, and it was beautifully made, like really lined very well, the design was amazing, and we did a whole campaign around that to promote that this is kind of the luxurious side of UKF, and it sold really, really well, because there was people that had bought UKF merch, for the last few years, and now they were like, wow, this is like a premium product, and selling a hoodie for like £75 is pretty difficult, but around having built that foundation with the merch, and having built that fan base and given so much content away for free, it was almost like an opportunity for the fan to be like, I am clearly a UKF fan.
Cool.
So yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, so kind of capitalising on their loyalty.
Yeah, exactly.
Making it a must-have item. Well, I'm all about merchandise and pricing strategy. Russell, I wanted to ask you, what's the best approach to take for product mix or pricing strategy? What would you recommend?
You've got to price things around various price points depending on the consumer's ability to pay. The best example I've got really are the Beatles. God, another bloody big name, sorry. But
name drop.
I'll try and think of a small one.
No.
Professor Green, there you go, Professor Green. So, no, go back to the Beatles. The Beatles are really interesting because they were really one of the first bands to understand the value of their brand in a licensing.
One of the first bands, weren't they?
They were one of the first bands, but in a licensing environment.
Beatless.
Beatless.
Sure.
And what they do is they sell licenses. If you understand the difference between, like in licensing, so every musician is a brand in their own right, and that's really obvious now, but when you look at, say, the toy industry, where you've got Bob the Builder, you will have...
Hello Kitty.
Hello Kitty. So the company that own the rights to Hello Kitty don't produce anything themselves. They license that to a bag manufacturer, a shirt manufacturer, and the Beatles do exactly the same thing. And what the Beatles do with price points is they license the rights to produce a shirt that retails between 15 and 20 to one company, the rights to produce a shirt that retails from 25 to 35 to another, and they just stack it up. And then some of those shirts there would be an exclusive range of Beatles merchandise in Paul Smith. And then they'll also...
So it's available from different outlets?
It's often available from different outlets. And on their D2C store, we would generally have a mixture apart from the exclusive stuff. And then we built in functionality so that you could search by price. So it's very much appealing to your fan. We also built the Tiny Temper store for his clothing brand, Disturbing London. It was a very early, one of the first sort of artists to try and cross over, and it didn't quite work. He did get the stuff in Selfridges, but it was just too expensive. And I think the lesson we made then was they were selling, trousers for 150 quid on the website. It's just too much. So that was a painful experiment.
Yeah. So if we're thinking about...
The thing with the Tiny Temper thing, though, that because he'd run the business so much between him and his friends, which were his management, and they didn't have so many big costs. They didn't have many middlemen. As soon as they tried to make that transference from purely independent to a business, they weren't equipped to do it. They weren't able to go, well, why are we paying you 20%? And instead of saying, oh, we have to eat that 20%, they went, oh, we'll just raise the price 20% because we've sold so much merch, thousands upon thousands of T-shirts before, and that's part of the reason I always felt that it didn't translate.
And I guess as well, his merch was so related to his music and his management company and the brand. And obviously, as the brand's now changed, now he is, very much a fashion, associated artist. So obviously now he's launched I think it's called What We Wear fashion line, and that seems to be doing the rounds at Fashion Week and stuff like that. But that's people know it's him, but it's very detached from his music, so you can buy into that without having to buy into his music. So I think hopefully that will do really well, but I think it's marketed a lot better than when he was selling the Disturbing London stuff, I think.
So I guess one thing that is available to artists now in terms of making merchandise is doing print on demand, which is pretty awesome because it takes away the stock risk. Dan, I wanted to ask you, have you ever used print on demand?
I've used Teespring before.
Yeah?
So as a Twitch partner, so I'm obviously...
Tell us about Twitch. Does everyone know about Twitch?
Twitch is a live gaming streaming site where you just sit there and talk shit while
I
playing
logged
a game.
on and watched Dan play a game the other night. He doesn't know this.
Yeah, and I just sit there and swear
I
at
don't
video
know what the
games
game
for
was.
8 hours and get paid.
There was a
for it.
dragon.
It was a dragon.
There was a dragon.
Monster hunter. I was hunting monsters. Yeah. I was killing monsters. But yeah, so people subscribe to me. They pay $6 a month to watch me. I can, or you can watch me for free. You don't have to pay. You don't even have to have an account. But it's that relying on the kindness of strangers model.
It's kind of an amazing social platform in that way, though, isn't it? Is it kind of?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
got
yeah.
elements of Patreon in it, where you're
so
paying
I
a fee.
pay my rent with it every month, and no one has to give me any money.
There's a revenue stream.
There's no barrier to people watching. You had Leah Loves Chief here last year who bought a house doing it. So
It's like one of our big brands, NCS, who are actually going to do a Fast 15 a little bit later, but all their music is completely copyright free. You can download it all for free, but they're our biggest brand and they do 6 million streams a day across their catalogue. You know, they're smashing it. It's still baffling to us every day to think that we know that people are out there buying the music, but it is literally available for free if you just click the link next to it. But people just want to buy into the brand and they want to donate to you to create, to talk shit.
What was that question, though?
The merchandise.
Sorry.
This is also really
Print on
interesting.
demand. So
Print on
I've
demand.
used print on demand. I'm actually just doing an actual merch store now with Backstreet Merch, which launches on March 1st, guys. And some new T-shirts, pins, beanies. I'm not wearing my beanie. I pointed at my bald head. But what I found with Teespring, it's actually after I was in a band called Dan and Sack versus Scroobius Pip, and I quit music. I just decided that was it, and then a year later I was like, actually I quite like making music, but I don't like selling music. So I made this decision that I was going to make everything for free. Pay what you want, music, all that. But the problem with that is I haven't got that lump of cash to invest in merch. So I used Teespring to gauge whether anyone wanted a Dan on a Sack t-shirt anymore. And it went really well, but I had no investment. I had no risk there. And it reminded me of 10 years before when me and Pip were first talking about t-shirts and going, well, I've got 300 quid in the bank. How much money have you got in the bank? Can we make a t-shirt? We were going to play for 50 quid in Watford supporting Kate Nash that night. Yeah. And it's like, we can't afford to do it. So we ended up doing t-shirt transfers at first because it was easy. And
so you sold the transfers?
We sold t-shirt transfers, which gave us enough money to make t-shirts. Then once we'd made enough money from t-shirts, we started doing hoodies and we just bounced up.
That's a cool path to take, though. I like that.
Teespring, Everpress, if you wanted to do vinyl on demand, you can use the Japanese company, or formerly Japanese.
Crates.
Yeah. I always like to say Q rates.
Q rates.
Because it's Q. But they're very expensive. But it gives the smaller artists, and the smaller artists are the ones that are suffering. You know, the bigger artists are the ones who get through the algorithms. The bigger artists are the ones who are making money from streaming. Those artists who are playing 50 to 50 people in Hull are the ones who can't afford to run merch, and giving them that opportunity to sell 10 t-shirts, probably they're only going to make 50 quid instead of 100 quid, but they get to do it without the risk.
And no stock risk.
Well, I've got 200 extra large Dan and Sack versus Scroobius Pip
It's always
t-shirts
the extra larges.
in boxes in my kitchen.
Yeah.
They've sat there
or the
for
double XL.
3 years, but we sold 4,000 of those t-shirts. So, you know, we didn't lose anything, and I'm extra large, so
You never have to buy another t-shirt.
I might have one on now. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm wondering.
Amazing. And I know that Muziekgebouw are offering print on demand for a few things now. It's kind of starting to creep into some of the sort of standard direct-to-fan platforms that you are probably all familiar with. But yeah, I think outside of those, it's things like Teespring, was it? And
Everpress is
Everpress is the English one. Everpress is probably probably better for Europe as a whole. Teespring are associated to Twitch very strongly. So I think that's why they're so forefront
Yeah.
in my mind. And you've
Yeah.
got companies like Designed by Humans as well, who don't let anyone in, but if you've got a bit of a following, they'll run you a whole store of on-demand gear.
So I'm a huge fan of band merchandise. If I go to a live show, I guess the way things are these days, I often won't have bought the album because I'll be listening to it on a streaming platform. But if I have a great time at a show, as I'm sure is the same with many of you, I feel compelled to go and see what they're selling, what have they got. I used to be a T-shirt girl on tours as well, so there's a professional interest somewhere in the back of me.
Did you buy the T-shirt and then put it on over all your other clothes straight away?
Well, what I mean by I'm a T-shirt girl is I was selling the T-shirts.
You're a merch
Sorry,
girl.
I was a merch
You sell
girl.
more than just T-shirts.
Yeah.
You
Well, yeah,
sell
there was a
an
range of
identity.
things. We had branded journals, we had umbrellas, we had, my favourite are the standards, things like mugs and tea towels, you know, because they're always on display. You get to use them all the time. Anyway, I was going to ask Chloe about merchandise because I know that pledge campaigns can often have some pretty wild offers. You can sometimes have screens and screens full of choices, and I just wondered what you think about the merchandise opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to the fact that we're really trying to engage with the super fans of an artist. So, you know, when we're setting up a store, we'll obviously suggest sort of the standard items like signed vinyl, posters, T-shirts, and that kind of thing. But we want to give the artist and the fan this opportunity to have something completely different that they wouldn't see on, you know, a normal store offering or at the merch booth. So we'll suggest things like handwritten lyric sheets, signed instruments, drum skins that are used on recordings, and that kind of like really personal memorabilia. And then kind of pushing into sort of who that artist's fan base is. Like, is it an artist that really likes to smoke dope? Maybe we'll make them a custom grinder to like sell to their fans. Maybe it's an artist that has like a lot of really tween fans and they want to get those little pop sockets that are on the back of your cell phone. So kind of trying to think of something
Tweens
that's
like grinders as well.
Oh
to be
yeah,
fair,
I mean,
but-
I can't say that that's entirely legal, but I mean, we try to think of something that is a unique piece of merch that either could be branded or just something that the artist uses that they can kind of bring their fans along with.
Yeah.
We were going to make, one of our brands made candles, Valentine's candles, as a part of their merch line as well, which is quite cool.
Nice.
Nice. Favourite merch, Dan, Russell?
My favourite merch?
Yeah, why not?
Well, Kiss, the band Kiss made a really beautiful flight case box set once. It was meant to be limited to 1,000, but they only pre-sold 300, so there's only 300 of them.
Currently available on PledgeMusic.
Have you got the old box set?
We've got the old box sets from Universal. They dug them out of a warehouse.
Oh, yeah.
No way.
Oh, you bought them.
Nice
Good
plug.
idea.
They're amazing.
You can sell them for a shed load on eBay. I happen to have a few in my garage.
Top tip, you heard it here first. Quick,
But,
go to Pledge.
It was an amazing. It was just so well thought through. It was a beautiful flight case, ridiculous expensive. All 40 albums on heavyweight vinyl, immaculate. Everything about it was completely beautiful. That was really nice. For Kiss, and then crazy pieces of merchandise. Oh, that sounds ridiculous, but for Dido, who didn't sell a lot of merchandise, we produced mugs, which sold surprisingly well, and knickers. Don't ask me why, but they sold surprisingly well as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
For me, it's between Belle and Sebastian selling frisbees, because like so dour at times, you know, it doesn't fit their image at all. Or Rammstein selling pornography, because they made porn, didn't they? They had commissioned a bunch of porn to be made to promote their music,
Right.
which went very well.
With them doing the soundtrack, maybe.
Who did the skull, the jelly skull, skunk flavoured jelly skull? That was an amazing exclusive, and you had to peel through the skull to get the album, which was on like a USB.
That sounds gross.
It was an American band. It was the Chili Peppers or somebody like that. It was ridiculous.
God.
$300.
$300, and you had to like fight
You had
through
to eat
something.
it to get to the product.
Well, that's pretty innovative. Did you say it was skunk flavoured?
I did, yes.
I don't even know what to make of that. So I guess thinking about merchandise, Dan, you published a blog post last month where you broke down the revenue that you had generated from using Bandcamp's pay what you want model.
Yeah.
And you're also using the subscription platform. Can you summarise tell us what you think about pay what you want as a business model?
So Pay What You Want, when Radiohead did it, was one of the worst things for the music industry.
Radiohead. What?
Radiohead. Yeah, it was terrible because
What?
we were already facing a problem that music was being devalued by the free services, and then Radiohead came along and said, "Oh, you can do it for nothing. Fuck it, you can have it."
But
for
they were
free."
selling a box set. I mean, that was the...
But that's where they were making their money, their 100,000 sales of the box set. But we weren't talking about that. All we talked about was that you can have this for nothing, which further played a part. And Tom York has already said, I'm almost quoting Tom York, Trent Reznor said the same thing, that they felt that they caused damage by further devaluing.
Interesting, because I think Trent Reznor's Ghosts albums that's much
wonderful.
quoted.
Yeah.
His giving away the album for free and then selling it at a higher quality to virtually the same people.
Which is what Run the Jewels have done, which works really well because you're acknowledging the devaluing and giving the super fan something to actually support. But so 10 years ago, I felt like the pay what you want model was a bad thing. But now we're at the other side of Spotify. You know, to rent essentially my album is you're going to give me 5
Access
cents
versus ownership.
So why not own my album for 5 cents? It's fine if you want to pay that. And I've found that people are ridiculously generous.
Okay.
The average sale is like £5.61 or something, but that's partially because some people pay 50 cents and some people have paid £50. You know, it's definitely. I've made that active decision to make my music available without a paywall, and I can do that because I saved some money when I was successful. You know, being at this end of my career, I've saved enough money to be able to do it. As a new artist, that's scary. But the more people you can get to hear something, the less barriers you can put in the way, the more opportunity you have of success. Convincing someone to click a link on Twitter is one of the hardest things to do. But if you can give them enough reasons to do it, then they get the opportunity to fall in love.
So how are you nurturing this relationship with your fans? Are you using email or are you contacting them via socials? Or how does the dialogue work?
So email's hugely important, as everyone says it's not, but I've got multiple mailing lists. So I've got you just put your email into my website list, which isn't as powerful as, say, my Bandcamp sales list. So anyone who's ever downloaded or for free or bought something on Bandcamp, I've got a list of just them. But
So you're actually differentiating the message that you send to these different groups?
Not just differentiating it, like giving those people different opportunities as well. Wow. So, but it's also knowing that the people who come to Bandcamp already know about Bandcamp. The people, my subscribers on Twitch, already know about Twitch. So I don't need to tell them about that, and I don't need to tell them about that. And it's making sure that the message is not repeating something people already know.
So you must have to be quite careful with duplication across your lists.
A little, yeah, but it's just... with MailChimp or whoever, it makes it very simple. Yeah. And you can prove that email does very well because MailChimp's really fucking expensive. Sorry to F then. But yeah, MailChimp's very expensive.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't be able to keep that model sustainable.
Other email service providers are available.
You've got a very targeted small database. I mean, MailChimp's amazing.
If you pull your list under 2,000, you can
it's free under 2,000.
Yeah.
And even if you've got, and I've got a little t-shirt business on the side as well, and my list, I started with about 90,000.
Yeah.
So it was expensive,
Really
and then I
expensive.
slowly realised, well, you haven't answered you haven't even opened the last 8 emails, so you're off.
Yeah.
And I pulled it right down, got it down to about 12,000. It's £100 a month.
Yeah.
Which you don't have to sell a lot of t-shirts to cover the cost of that.
So I keep all my lists below 2,000 and
smart.
don't send out more than 12,000 a month. So
That's what I'm doing wrong.
So I get it for free. But if you don't
Gaming
manipulate it in
MailChimp,
that
I
way-
like it.
What we've actually started doing, we've built, because most of the audience for our brands are very, very young, so don't really use emails. And even if they do, they're not using them on a regular basis. So we've built a thing in-house called Superfan, and it's depending on which brand we have, or sometimes we call it Super Family, or sometimes we call it super fan. And so what we've done is that we'll be like, you can have an exclusive, first listen to our track if you sign up to Superfan. And when they do sign up to Superfan with Spotify, the track gets automatically put into their playlist. And what we've done, we can also, because we have access basically to their account, we can see what other artists that they're listening to. So we may sign another artist or be supporting another artist based on the other music that they're listening to. And we have kind of a direct in there. And then because they've connected with their Spotify, we get their email as well. So then we can obviously sell merch to them through the email, as well as making sure our tracks are in the playlist, as well as knowing what other artists they are listening to. And then we can base our next marketing moves based off all that data kind of put together, really.
As long as the playlist, like, it's not a shared account. It's like, he
Yeah.
listens to all this grime and then Phil Collins. We need the grime Phil Collins.
Yeah.
That's who we need. That's what we need right now.
That's literally what we're working on.
Sorry, can I ask you a question on Spotify? Have you tried selling merch on Spotify as well?
Well, because Spotify don't promote labels and we manage labels, so we can't really do that unless the artists are pushing it. So that's why we just concentrate on making sure the music's in the playlist, but we haven't been able to transfer our merch over to Spotify.
I don't know how big the merch sales are through Spotify. It was a real pain in the ass when we were trying to do it.
Yeah, it is, definitely. But yeah, with my artists, I definitely do, because I do artist management, but not with our brands, because we can't have, our profiles just don't allow it, unfortunately.
So that kind of, I'm amazed that you get to look at what other artists they're listening to.
We're a nosy bunch.
That seems crazy. I'm going to make a note of that. I'm going to be talking about data privacy in a little while. So, more questions. GDPR.
How many
all the
rules
way.
are we breaking?
You got till May, don't worry.
May the 25th, the law changes.
May the 25th. Chloe, when people are using Pledge to plan campaigns, is it in your role to give them some kind of guidance about how to structure their offers?
Yeah, definitely. So even if it's, a major label that we're working with, we'll still offer suggestions based on what sales we've seen for a similar artist on our platform and kind of what we think would be a really good exclusive offer, maybe something they haven't thought about, as well as working directly with them to obviously make sure that we're incorporating everything that they wanted to plan for the campaign in terms of merchandise as well. But a huge part of what I do is basically just saying, hey, have you thought about offering this, album artwork as a signed lithograph or something that I think is more kind of a unique experience?
Yeah. So with just slight shift to the ticketing market, there's lots of press and well-deserved attention for the fanfare campaign to try and do something about the secondary ticketing thing that's happening to all of us all over the world. And one of the solutions that I think Ticketmaster is putting forward is the idea of this dynamic pricing, which we all know about, maybe without knowing about it, in things like the airline industry, given that depending on when you book a flight, it will cost a different amount, and we kind of just suck it up because we want to fly somewhere, and what are we going to do? But I don't know, some artists are experimenting with this for ticketing. Does anyone have any thoughts on where that's going to go?
Well, dynamic pricing has been a big part of the mobile gaming industry for a long time. So turning players into payers. It's a way of looking at your data and saying, well, that guy never spends more than $1 on extra lives, so we need to make sure for him it's that. It's going to be that price. Now, the problem is what happens with all of this stuff, and what happened in the gaming industry is that it happened and it went along, and then someone got greedy, like EA this year with Star Wars. They got really greedy and everyone went, well, this is awful. And we end up litigating against it. There's bills going through Congress now against loot boxes and stuff like that. So although dynamic pricing is a nice idea, someone's going to take the piss and it's going to go horribly wrong. Yeah. Someone's going to be sitting next to his girlfriend trying to buy tickets, and his are 25 and hers are 20, and they're going to get angry about it. So if there's some control, if there's some sense about the way it's doing it, but someone's going to get greedy at some point, and sadly.
Someone from Ticketmaster is probably here and can set me straight on what a great job they're doing of it all. We might go to questions now, though, because I think we have to wrap up shortly. Has anyone got questions for our panel? Anything about D2C, merch, monetizing? Oh, we have one over here.
Oh, no.
Let us know who you are and what your question is, please.
My name's James. I just wanted to ask, a lot of the bands and music organisations we talked about are very well established, so like Robbie Williams, UKF, One Direction. If you guys were a band starting out today, with the exception of T-shirts and vinyl, what merchandise would you invest in and why?
So, yeah, like, that's actually very difficult. Like, you need basically something small, something cheap and small to make. So if you're a guitar band, silly stuff, plectrums, like guitar strap, anything you can do that sets you apart from other people. But when it comes down to it, T-shirts are king when it comes to merch. They always
or
will
anything
be.
you can do print on demand.
Yeah.
Really, pretty much anything you do print on demand. There's great mugs print on demand, and I mean, you know, if you're a thrash metal band, maybe a mug is not the right thing, but
I don't know, man.
Well, yeah,
everyone likes tea.
they do.
Well, I guess, I mean, the obvious one is kind of USBs and stuff like that, but I've seen a lot of really cool artists, you know, do like a premium line of socks and stuff, and it's amazing when they've been marketing their campaign, and you actually discover that people really value having good quality socks, so it's like, it's around stuff like that.
One thing for a new artist to do as well is if you can make it yourself, do it. Like, I did this years ago when I was still DJ Sackboy or whatever I was. It's a reference to huge testicles. But I did this EP called the Shoplifting EP. And I went into this charity shop, they had this bin full of maybe 100 pairs of jeans. And I just said, how much for them? She said, well, we're chucking them out a tenner. Bought the jeans off her, cut all the pockets out, and then put the CD in the pocket. That was it. And I just, like, that was it. And I just sold this CD in a pocket. And people were like, well, you made that. That's nice. And, like, I was selling them for, like, £3 at shows. And people were like, no, that's a £5. No, it's a tenner. Because they felt like they had something special, you know. And that's the thing. We get to this big point where we do all these grand things, but we forget that sometimes all someone wants is some way of connecting with the artists they love. Underwear. G-strings all day.
I think
postcards.
Postcards?
Signed postcards.
I used to wear a panda, like, head thing. It's like a panda hat. Yeah, it's a panda hat, say. I had a baseball cap on and a panda hat on stage, and the girls who made it for me sold loads of them. Like, because, like, I stood on stage at, like, main stage at festival, and then everyone was like, where do we get those panda hats? So it doesn't have to be obvious. It just has to identify with you as an artist.
Yeah, and relate. I guess you can also relate a lot of stuff to your hobbies. So I used to work with an artist who was a skateboarder, and he liked to make art. So he'd pick up like discarded skateboards that people couldn't use anymore, and he'd just like spray paint them and do different things. They're completely, you can't use them, but he sold a lot of them, and it was super cheap to make as well. So.
Or props or anything that you use on stage. I had an artist who they use a lot of sort of like anime figures and things like that, and so a lot of just stuff that he collected in his house he'd bring with him to the merch booth and be like, oh yeah, you want, you know, Elliot the fetus alien, you can have him for £100. So
Car boot sales.
I was thinking about it. I swear Scroobius sold some of his own hair on eBay. He had a video where he shaved his head on his solo album, and he sold his hair.
Oh
And
yeah,
he
people
made,
have
like,
sold like
money from
saliva in a vial and stuff on
That'd
our
be
site.
nice.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's legal, but we did it.
It's fine. It's fine. No one's going to know.
We sold tattoos for the Prodigy at their Milton Keynes gigs.
Oh,
So you
actual
bought
tattoos.
Actual tattoos.
So you bought a voucher on the shop,
Yeah.
and and you queued up with your numbered voucher, and you queued up at the tattoo thing. And you bought the tattoo at the gig.
That's cool.
We didn't do any health and safety checks.
Oh. And we've got one more question.
He's like really focused on
Over
gardening.
here, please.
G'day, I'm Rowan. My question is about the rights to do with D2C, and particularly when you're doing a deal with a label or with a distributor, often the rights to these things are included in those agreements. What do you think is kind of the best practice for that? Is it just a rights grab? Do they actually add value in these areas?
Do you mean do labels add value?
Yeah, and
merch
and how do you assess whether or not that's a
As an
wise thing
artist.
to do as if it's the beginning of your career? I mean, it's quite difficult to envisage these things. And then the second part is similar, but to do with, I guess, the idea of using Spotify as an example, where there is the ability to link to merchandise stores, which used to run through Artist Link, and you could link to your own store or to a particular partner, or you could arrange all of this, and then that changed to everything runs through MerchBar, which is a US-based merchandising company, and they are now taking the retail margin off everything. What do you make of these kinds of arrangements that artists can sometimes have little power over?
Do you want to start with the
I'll
rights
take the
question?
second bit.
Take the second one, I'll do the first one.
So the Spotify and working with MerchBar is a wasted opportunity for the entire industry. If they went back to the old Artist Link method or narrowed it down to actually give the artist some choice, instead of it just being the label or distro chucking some CDs up on MerchBar, you could actually sell some exclusive things through there and drive some traffic to your Spotify, that would be ideal. But it's very much feels like this is stuff I could get anywhere. Why the hell am I clicking this when I can get it cheaper on Amazon? It's a big opportunity. The amount of time you spend in Spotify, they could actually be doing good business for bands. But that's not Spotify's business model to benefit bands. So,
I think they're starting to experiment a little bit in the US with reaching out directly to some independent artists to try to do exclusive things. So we've actually run on PledgeMusic a few times an exclusive item that will be available only to the Spotify listeners, and it will get pushed through to their sort of email network of folks that listen to that artist. And it will be available exclusively on the store, and then it will open up to everybody else. So
Is it on the link on the Spotify page as well?
yeah, so there'll be, it's primarily now they're just kind of trying to run it in like a newsletter, but then eventually they're hoping to push it as links as well. So, but it's very limited, and they're just kind of starting to branch out and see how successful that is. It would be very nice.
It's a huge mistake. I mean, in terms of rights, it's very difficult to hold on to them, but if you can, the artist wants to hold on to them, because the big problem with giving the rights to different people, which most frequently is the merch company want the rights and the label want the rights, is you often end up with a situation which is still exactly the same as it was 20 years ago, of having one shop selling music and one shop selling merchandise, which is ridiculous. Now, a company I worked with last year called Muziekgebouw, who some of you might know, they have got a solution for it, and if with adoption it will work. So Muziekgebouw have created for Iron Maiden a Iron Maiden marketplace. So whoever has the rights, it's modelled on the Amazon marketplace, whoever has the rights sells the Iron Maiden products through a single Iron Maiden shop. Customer pays once, can buy from everything, and then the money's split out by Muziekgebouw in the background. It's the first time I've ever seen it work properly. It's taken them a long time to get there. So that's one, but that's only because Iron Maiden have enough power. So as an artist to begin with, you really want to try and hold on to those rights so you can dictate who you partner with. One
thing, if you're struggling to convince a label to not let you keep your own merch rights, is to try to... What we did with Sunday Best when we did our deal was just say, we don't want you to have merch rights, but we're going to give you the right to something exclusive. So you can have this exclusive thing that only you are ever going to be able to sell. You can sell it for the entire life of our contract, but this is yours. And we ended up saying they basically had an exclusive T-shirt per album, and they made money from it, Instead of us giving away everything, they got something that was personal core to them, that drove traffic to them.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think we have to wind it up there.